You're listening to episode number 87 of the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. In this episode, I talk about the fact that you're the creator and the solution to all of your problems. If you've got problems in your life, I'm going to give you a completely new way to think about, air quote, problems in this episode. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. Now, you may be scratching your head thinking, Jim, how can it be possible that I don't have any problems? I mean, I can't afford to put new tires on my car, and I can't afford a babysitter, and I can't afford to pay my credit card. I just got laid off. My roof is leaking or whatever. Well, I totally get it. And where I work from, and I learned this many years ago, is that you have no problems in life. Now, again, you're probably scratching your head going, what? What are you talking about? I mean, how can you even say this? Well, the reality and the truth is this. Any problem, and by the way, the word problem, I'm going to, air quote problem, I'm going to use the word problem throughout this episode. And it may seem a little contradictory, but we can also say, instead of problem, situation. I'm just talking about circumstances in your life, and I'm going to use the word problem to refer to them. But see, you have no problems, because any problem that you have is simply created in your mind, and it's from your beliefs about what the world is and what problems are. Many years ago, when I started my NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming training, I worked at a company called Peak Performance in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was a husband and wife that ran the company in NLP training. And I was waiting tables at night, paying my bills, and then apprenticing during the day, and interning during the day. And I remember one day, I remember the year is 1994. I was talking to Michael, was one of the owners of the company, and I was talking about money or something. And he said to me, he goes, "So you have money problems?" And I said, "Yeah, I have money problems. I'm not making enough money." And I don't remember the whole conversation, but this is what he said to me that floored me. He said, "If you've got money problems, you have no problems." And it sunk in. It took a little while to sink in, but I've recognized that to be true over the years is that money problems are very, very easy to solve. Yet most of us choose to struggle through life with our old beliefs and our old paradigms, and we struggle for a lifetime. What I've noticed also in myself is, as I just said, most people struggle for a lifetime, from one problem to a second problem to another problem to another problem, and their whole life is struggle and problems. When I was getting my initial NLP, and again, neuro-linguistic programming certification, we had it was towards the end of the program, and it was 8-month program, and there were, I think it was a 3-day weekend per month, and we had to do what's called a psychodrama. We had to, I don't remember all the details, but we had to create some kind of goal, and we had to actually act it out on the way to the goal. And I remember that I had somebody stand a distance away from me, and we were kind of like in an amphitheater place outside. And I do remember that she was holding something. It was just a feather, but it was my goal to get it, which is part of my psychodrama. And I remembered that I struggled all the way up, like 10, 11, 12, 15 seats. I struggled all the way there in my psychodrama. And Michael pointed out, he's like, "Did you notice that you could have just walked a straight line from where you were to, get the feather? But you struggled. I mean, you made it really, really hard on yourself, and you struggled all the way there to your goal." And I lived what I'd say at least half of my life that way. I was about, I don't know, 28, 29 when I learned that. But see, notice that I said that I learned it because I watched my parents always struggle, always, and especially with money. And as I was thinking about this episode, I can say candidly that I never remember, and I mean never remember, a time in my life where my folks were not struggling with money. And my folks constantly had problems with money. I mean, they were always short and then borrowing money from my mom's parents. And when I look back and I'm talking about this episode, every bit of that was created, by my parents, and was created by their beliefs, and was created by their filters of the world. Because there are other people at that very same time when I was growing up that had tons of money and they had very different beliefs and filters about money. Hence, they had no problems when it comes to money. So what I want to share with you is this, a salient thought for you to start this episode, is that if something can be solved, then it's not a problem anymore. Consider that. If something can be solved, then it is not a problem anymore. And what I want to point out is that pretty much everything in your life has been solved. Therefore, they haven't been problems, but you've made them problems. And again, let that just settle in. If something can be solved, then it's not a problem. Before we keep on going here, I do want to point out also that you're going to be listening to this episode somewhere around middle of January. And research shows clearly that by the third week of January, 92% of people have fallen off their yearly goals and their New Year's resolutions. That's why, mark your calendar for January the 21st, I'm going to be doing a no charge, obviously free training, and it's going to be on how to be more successful in 2020 without setting goals. It's also going to be at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time over on my website, jimfortin.com. In the show notes, you can actually click the link and get registered. And again, there is no charge. And I know I created an episode recently, and if I say shot, which is I almost said, because I shoot a lot of video, it's just a faux pas. So January 21st, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, the whole topic is going to be about how to be more successful in 2020 without setting goals. Okay, let's go back to what people consider problems. Now, I don't know how long you've been listening, but you've heard me talk in many episodes about my brother-in-law, the shaman. And I've said before, he's not a shaman practitioner, so to speak. He didn't read any books. People have even asked before, does he have a website? No, he doesn't have a website. He's a healer. People come from all over the world. He has a 1.5 year waiting list. He's very inexpensive, and all he has is a phone number that he's had for 25 years and, and an AOL email address. But he's worked with me for a lot of years. And talking about problems, the two biggest problems that most people have in what I call the 3D world, meaning our physical world around us, is money and health. And he and I were talking one night, and he said, you know what? When most people have something that goes wrong in their body, most people make it a huge problem, and they're focused on the problem as opposed to being focused on the solution. Most people keep their attention on, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, and then they expand the problem, not even recognizing that every thought that we have talks to every cell in our body. And the more that people focus on the problem, the more that they expand the health issue and the problem. And again, I would just want to reiterate, I'm using the word problem because I'm going to take this apart for you more as we go. I use the word problem simply because that's how you identify life situations that many times you cannot see your way through. Many years ago also, my brother-in-law, I had a client when I lived in New York City, very, very wealthy man. His office was at Rockefeller Center, 30 Rock. He was a Venezuelan oil man. And one day he said to me, and I was teaching him some advanced, let's just say, persuasion skills. And he said, Jim, put together a business plan. I want to back you. And I did put together a business plan. I brought over a friend that was the vice president at Goldman Sachs, a Harvard graduate. He was going to be part of the plan with me, my CFO, et cetera. Long story. And I brought on 3 business partners in total that had skills I didn't have. And one of the business partners that I brought on started causing a lot of waves and a lot of challenges very early on. And I called my brother-in-law because it was a $3 million plan that I'd put together. And I was talking to my brother-in-law, and he said, well, what are you concerned about? What's the problem? And I said, well, Chris, it already looks like Chris is positioning himself to do some what I call unethical things, to take advantage of the rest of us, etc. And I don't even remember the entire story. But he took me through a Socratic method. And he said, well, what's the problem? And I said, well, I could lose the company. And then what's the problem? Well, I'm going to be on the hook for $3 million. And what's the problem? And what's the problem? And then finally he got to, well, you know what? You could be dead. And that's no problem. So as you can see, everything is fine. So in that moment, I learned a lot of years ago to work from, and this may be a little alien to some of you guys, but I learned to work from everything in life is exactly as it needs to be right now. It might not be exactly what I want right now, but I've learned, and I want to go here also, that I learned from my brother-in-law many years ago. I remember the day we were talking on the phone. This was 1996, and he said to me, and I've always remembered, it just burned in my mind, when he said, every single thing in your life, now we're talking about problems this episode, every single thing in your life that happens to you is a blessing. And he said it's a blessing so that you can grow, and I mean this non-dogmatically, so that you can grow and evolve spiritually. And what I've learned over the years is, and that's where I work from, is every single thing that happens to me happens so that I may grow and I may evolve. But the way most people look at life is, oh my gosh, this happened to me and this is bad, bad, bad. And most people, and you've heard the old colloquialism before, is look for the silver lining around every cloud. But what happens, and I've been there, what most people do is they obsess. I'm going to use the word obsess about their problems, whether it be a health problem or it be a money problem or whatever they perceive to be a, again, problem. Most people obsess and they obsess and they obsess. And keep listening because it's going to become very apparent to you that the more that you obsess about your air quote problems, the bigger you make your problems, the bigger you make them, and the more you're stuck in your problem, and then you're consumed by your problem. And this is the reason that many people can't get ahead in life is because they're consumed by their problems. Einstein said that something along the lines of you cannot solve, and I think he used the word problem, you cannot solve a problem at the level that it was created. So consider that. So whatever money problems you have, and this is why so many people stay stuck in life, whether it be health and wellness or money or relationships, because guess what? You're the one who created the problem, and if you had different resources, you would not, meaning mentally, if you had different resources, you wouldn't have created that problem. So you're the person who's created it. And because you don't have different resources, you created it. How do you suppose you're going to create something differently when you're at the top of your mental skill set? This is why we have to go to a higher level of thinking. Let me segue here. I do mention every so often over at my website, jimfortin.com, there is a program. There's no charge. Download it. I think it's a 90-minute video program. Well, I know what it is. I just don't know how long it is. I created it like 2 years ago. And it's called the Master Thought Formula, and it will teach you step by step. And it's a complete program. I mean, it's not some teaser program or any of that. It will teach you quite literally how to start thinking from a higher level. And when you do that, you will discover that there are no problems because, like I said earlier, anything that has a solution is no problem. And when you look at your life from a higher level, it will be immediately apparent that you have no problems in life. So the first place I start, let's concretize this a little bit. The first place that I start in my life. Now, does everything in my life go like I want it to? No. I mean, I'm on the planet. Come on. No, it doesn't. But you know what? Where I work from is everything is a blessing. And I'm exactly where I need to be in this moment. Let me give you an example. It just popped in my mind. I had to speak at an event in Dallas about 3 or 4 years ago. And the event was only 2 exits from my house. And I got in the car and left for plenty of time or thereabouts, to get to the event. And I was the final closing speaker. And I decided not to get on the tollway because it was only 2 exits. I just took the access road. And it's 3 lanes. And there were 3 cars in front of me driving like really under the speed limit, pacing each other. And I couldn't get around any of these 3 cars. As I'm trapped behind these 3 cars, all going below the speed limit, I was thinking, okay, people, hurry up. I've got to get to the event, et cetera, et cetera. I needed time to put my microphone on and all this kind of stuff. What happened is the car in the middle lane, which I was behind, the car in the middle lane, the light at the exit I was going to get off, the light turned to yellow. And that car, instead of actually stopping, that car actually ran the red light or ran through the yellow when it became red. And what's interesting, whatever the timing was, is that a car coming from an opposite direction also, I guess, ran through their light or whatever it was and T-boned the car in front of me going about 40 to 50 miles an hour. I mean, boom, this massive explosion in front of me. And I said to myself, if I were actually not where I am in this exact moment, that most likely would have been me in the intersection. And in that moment, it became very apparent to me that I'm exactly where I need to be. And if I perceive that I'm not where I need to be and that's a problem, it's not a problem. It's exactly as it needs to be. As I said a little earlier, most people think that they are solving their problems when they obsess over their problems. And what they're actually doing is making a bigger problem. Now, consider that. Most people think that they are solving their problems when they're obsessing about their problems. And what they're doing, I love it's called, I think, the rule of whole, Hole. The rule of whole is when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. When you find yourself in the problem, stop obsessing about it, which is making it a problem, which makes it even bigger for you. So notice in your own life, because I've done it. I seriously, many years ago, and now I don't, but many years ago, I used to obsess about the problem. Not enough money, not enough money, not enough hours when I'm waiting tables, not enough this, not enough that. And then I'd fight in the circumstances, so to speak. I'd fight them in my mind. And it reminds me of a quote that I'd heard from Mother Teresa many years ago. And she said, notice that I'm going to add here, what I want you to notice is that you fight your problems like I did. And Mother Teresa once said, or I don't know, many times, I don't know, I just read it, is she said, what you fight weakens you. And I want you to notice that the more problems that you think that you have, how happy are your days, which I talk about in the Master Thought Formula, which I know you're going to want to go over to jimfortin.com and download. Look at your days. And this is also neurological. I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but this is why there are 40 million women in the United States living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because they're running their brain all day long. Problem, 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 work, 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 kids, 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 problem, problem, problem. What happens is we literally run down our brain battery, so to speak. Metaphorically speaking, the brain only has so much energy. We're exhausted at the end of the day. And have you noticed that all these problems that you have, that you obsess about, all these things you call a problem, and you literally just obsess and obsess and obsess, and you're exhausted. Why? Because these perceptions and interpretations of what your problems are draining you. As I was thinking about this episode, I also noticed that every single money problem, and listen very carefully here, because it pertains to you as well, but every single money problem that I've ever had in my life has resolved itself. Consider that. Look at your own life. Every money problem you have ever had. Now, you might not like the outcome. You got evicted from your apartment, or your car got repossessed, or your credit card, got cut off, or whatever. But notice, if you look back over time, every problem that you've ever had has resolved itself, and that being the truth. And by the way, you might be in the middle of something right now and saying, oh, this is a problem. Well, guess what? It's not going to matter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. Therefore, it's going to resolve itself. And when you come to that realization that every problem has resolved itself, therefore there are no problems, it makes it a lot easier to get through life. Let me share with you where I live from these days. One of my clients, and I know I've mentioned him here on the podcast, he's not a client anymore. He's a real estate agent, and he was making about $750 a year. And this was many years ago. And he said to me on one call, he goes, Jim, you don't worry about money because you have money. And I said, no, quite the opposite. I have money because I don't worry about money. Now, I could dive a lot deeper, and I try to keep every episode around 30 minutes, but I know I've mentioned before, if you go to the episode number 9 on how people use the law of attraction to repel money, it'll make more sense. In that if you consider money a problem, the more that you worry about the problem of money, the more that you expand it, the bigger that your problem becomes. That's why I do not worry about money, and that's why I have money in abundance, is because I do not worry about money. And that seems contrarian to some people, or it seems oxymoronic. But if you want more money, stop worrying about not having money, because the more you think about not having money, the more that expands in your life, and the more of that you create. Okay, so here's what I do not want you to do. Do not convince yourself that you do not have problems. Now, what I mean by that is you have circumstances in your life. Do not try to convince yourself that you do not have circumstances. Here's where we want to be. And I know that I've created an episode also, and this segues into it, an episode on attachment, which is your greatest cause of suffering. So where I work from is things that happen in my life. Where I work from is just a neutral position. Okay, this is what I see in front of me. Now, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to focus and 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 focus on the perceived problem, or am I going to move my attention to a positive desired outcome that I want to create? Where I move to is I move my attention to a positive desired outcome that I want to create. Now, as I'm sharing this with you and you're listening, look at your life. Look at your life when you actually encounter what you think are problems. Where do you keep your attention? Because you've heard me say in other episodes, most likely, if you've been listening for any time, and if you've not been listening for a long time, go back to episode number 1, and you'll see why as you progress through the episodes, is that you are where your attention is. I also want you to notice that every problem that you think that you have is something external. And that's one of the reasons I created this podcast, Transform Your Life from the Inside Out, is for you to literally eliminate any external problems. You have to actually perceive them differently in your mind as to what problems are. And as I said, for me, there are no problems because every problem has a solution. Therefore, there are no problems. I'm simply looking for what is the best possible outcome and how do I get there. As I'll touch upon if you go download the Master Thought Formula, is what most people do is they get in the problem and they have some thought about the problem, and then it's like somebody pulled the bathtub drain and everything just swirls down and people spiral. Why? Because that's where they have their thought energy, and that's where they have their consciousness, and that's where they have their attention is on the problem. So where I work from is, and I suggest, is that you want to acknowledge that the air quote problem exists. All right, so you want to acknowledge. What you do not want to do is put your head in the sand like an ostrich. What you want to do is acknowledge, okay, I've got something in front of me, but here's the distinction, is you do not want to get attached to your perceptions of what you think the problem is. Because I just mentioned, I did create an episode recently on your greatest cause of suffering is your attachment. And then I want you to notice how unhappy that you become on the inside because of a perceived problem on the outside. And your perceived problem on the outside is nothing more than an interpretation. As I'm recording this, it pops into my mind, and I don't know if this is true, but I read it many years ago, that Thomas Edison, his laboratory burned down. And as it was burning, he told his son, quick, go get your mom. Now, for many people, if your laboratory is burning down, that is a problem, so to speak. But he told his son, go get your mom. And his son's like, okay, why? And Edison allegedly said, because we're burning all of our mistakes and we can start over again. But notice, it's simply an interpretation, which I've done an episode on that recently as well. It's simply an interpretation. So I want to reiterate, whatever circumstances you have in your life that are not working for you, whatever you do, do not ignore it, which some people do. A great example would be, for example, this. If you get a letter from the IRS saying that they're going to levy your accounts, you know what? That could be an air quote problem. You definitely do not want to, ignore the IRS. And I know, there's probably somebody listening that has gotten letters from the IRS and they put them away and come to find out their accounts are levied. You acknowledge the situation, you're neutral about it, and then you focus on the desired outcome. Because I'm going to say for like the 4th time, anything that's solvable is not a problem. And I guarantee you, anyone and everyone, like look at Willie Nelson many years ago, anyone and everyone that's ever had a problem with the IRS at some point in time has solved that problem. Therefore, all problems are solvable. What a lot of people do is they spend literally 99% of their time on problem, and 1% of time on desired outcome. And we want to flip that. So look at your own life. Are you spending 99% of your thought energy on the problem and 1% on desired outcome? Flip that to 1% of acknowledging the situation, 99% on desired outcome. You literally will move yourself energetically and in thought form, because everything is thought and everything is energy. That is proven. As a matter of fact, on episode, I think number 9 again, where I talk about the double slit experiment, which is physics. I mean, real world, like physics, science, where we affect the physical world around us based upon where we hold our consciousness. So, believe it, don't believe it, I don't know. I mean, do whatever you want to do, but you could say, for example, I don't believe in gravity, which is a property. I believe they call it in physics a property. That's fine. Go to a 3-story building then and hop off and then say you don't believe in gravity. I mean, there are certain natural laws. And we create our physical realities based upon our internal realities. This has been written about for thousands of years and proven by science. So notice, when you have a problem, what you're doing, the more you focus on the problem, the more you're expanding it in your external reality. So I say to all of my students in my transformational coaching programs, and I say it over and over and over, and sometimes it takes a long time to sink in, and I get that. We all learn at different paces. But I say you are where your attention is. You are where your attention is. So is your attention on even having a problem, and then you have 99% of your acknowledgement and awareness there, or is your attention on what is the outcome? And I literally, let me go back here, I literally work from anything that's solvable is not a problem. And I think I probably said it 3 times in this episode. And you look at your own life, everything is solvable in a certain amount of time. One more thing here. How much of your problem, whatever you perceive to be a problem, do you identify with? Now, what I mean by that, let me slow down here and just let this sink in. Let's say that your problem for a lifetime is that you do not have money. Money comes, money goes, and you're always broke. What I want you to also look at is not just that problem and situation and circumstance, but who are you being and what ways are you being relative to that circumstance? One of the first episodes I talk about transformation. Well, I think the first episode's about transformation, and I believe I talk about be, do, have. Who are you being? Because who you're being psychologically is what's creating your external environment. What most of you try to do is you try to do your way out of not having money, but you're being poor in your mind and working more hours and more jobs, and you're doing more and still having less to show for it. So when we talk about no money, and if that's a challenge with you, here's what I want to ask you is, what does that mean about you and your interpretations and your perceptions about yourself? Transformational takeaway. And again, remember, January 21st, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Click the link on show notes over at jimfortin.com, and literally how to be extremely successful in 2020 without setting goals. I do not set goals, and I haven't for many years, because when I set them many years ago, I never achieved them. So whatever you do, go over to jimfortin.com, click the link. Obviously, for this episode, click the link and register for the January 21st training on how to be more successful in 2020 without setting goals. Your transformational takeaway this week is a question for you. And that question is, am I dealing with and focusing on what I perceive to be the problem, or is my attention on my desired outcome? Because see, double slit experiment, which I mentioned over in episode number 9, physics, where your attention is where you will be. And that rolls us into the next episode. It's going to be episode number 88 by Ryafet, I believe. And he says, I keep trying to change my identity, but I fall back into my old patterns. If you keep falling back into your old patterns, guess what? It's the current identity which pushes you back into your old patterns. And which seems like a conundrum for us, because we're like, okay, if my current identity pushes me back in my old patterns and my old patterns keeps me stuck in my current identity, then how do I move to a higher identity? So if you can relate to that, make sure that you tune into the next episode. And I say all the time, or often, thank you. I'm very blessed to be able to create these episodes for you. And if you find value in these episodes and they're helping you, please share them with your friends and your family and your coworkers on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Please share so that we can impact more people together. Okay, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on another episode and on the 21st. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. You know, if you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.